Chicago. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Ron J here, cultural correspondent for The Tribe. Welcome to our episode 4 of We Will Chicago. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. You guys can be anywhere in the world right now, but you're here with me. I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for stopping by once again. And like always, like we always do, we open up the show with the Ron J Report, a rundown of this week's news headlines in the arts and entertainment world. So let's just start things off. We here at The Tribe would like to take time to remember the great legend and thespian Chadwick Boseman. I go to the movies often. Actually, me and my son, pre-COVID, we would actually make it a point to go every week. My son's 4 now, and he can sit through any movie. It's amazing. And we had to see Black Panther at least 2 or 3 times. Plus a subscription to Disney Plus gives us unlimited Black Panther and Marvel. So we love it. And I believe Chadwick being able to embody Jackie Robinson, James Brown, Thurgood Marshall, and King T'Challa makes him easily one of the most multi-talented actors ever. And see, that's the thing. Chadwick Boseman took on roles with substance, roles with layers. He not only contributed to the culture in his own way, but he saluted all of those who helped us get there. Excuse me. The other day, my son gave me the Wakanda salute. You know, the coldest thing to ever come out of the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The impact he's had on this generation and generations to come is huge. He's reminded us that we can be superheroes, that we can be kings. After learning about his fight with cancer and how he silently battled with the disease, it seems Chadwick Boseman was just as tough in real life as the vibranium he possessed on screen. Our thoughts and prayers are with his loved ones. All right. We went without basketball for a couple of days. Last week, the Milwaukee Bucks refused to play against the Orlando Magic following the police shooting a 29-year-old Jacob Blake up in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Now, the NBA resumed on Saturday after players and the league came up with action items that will establish a social justice coalition with representatives from players, coaches, and governors that will be focused on a broad range of issues, including increasing access to voting, promoting civic engagement, and advocating for meaningful police and criminal justice reform. Yeah, I guess it's just one of them days being Black in America, and those days come often. And speaking of Brandy and Monica's highly anticipated versus battle did stream live on Instagram and Apple Music on Monday night. The ladies brought in 6 million total viewers across platforms, the highest viewership to date for the versus battle. And we've had some highly anticipated and viewed versus battles. Shout out to those ladies for breaking all records. As far as the winner, look, I saw at least 50 people tweet out Mo to the, so I'm rolling with Brandy. Shout out to Monica, though. Southside rapper Vic Mensa will host a drive-in concert at the Lakeshore Drive-In this Saturday, September 5th. The concert will be held in the Adler Planetarium's parking lot. Now, it's been nearly a year since Vic's last live performance. Mensa also dropped a new EP V-tape with plans to drop more music this year. Now, for more information, visit the Tribe's event calendar, The Scene. All right, y'all. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot has joined Snapchat with a Bitmoji decked out in a fedora hat. The city also dropped a new Chicago filter on the app that activates when the user is wearing a mask. Now, the mayor is trying to reach young people who are now testing positive at a much higher rate. So don't be surprised, y'all, if Lori slides in the DM. All right, a new show based in Chicago has kept the internet buzzing since its premiere 3 weeks ago. Yes, guys, I'm talking about HBO's Lovecraft Country. It's a supernatural horror series following a Black family in 1950s Chicago. The show was created, written and directed by Misha Green, and co-executive produced by Jordan Peele. We all know Jordan Peele from Get Out. And is based on the 2016 book of the same title. Now, Journey Smollett and Jonathan Majors are lead actors in the show. Last week, I had an opportunity to talk about Lovecraft Country with Robert Daniels, a Chicago-based freelance film critic. Robert is the founder of 812 Film Reviews, and he's written for the playlist Consequence of Sound and Mediaversity. Robert is also a Rotten Tomatoes approved critic and is a member of the Chicago Film Critics Association, the African American Film Critics Association, and the Online Film and Television Association. Robert has covered the Toronto International Film Festival, Sundance, South by Southwest, Tribeca, the Denver Film Festival, and many, many more. This guy's legit, in other words. Check it out. Here's a quick clip of our interview.
Lovecraft Country is set in Chicago mostly during the 1950s. It follows three main characters in Uncle George, who's played by Courtney B. Vance. Also, Jonathan Major stars in it, and so does Journey Smollett. And they play these three people who go into what's called Lovecraft Country to recover Jonathan Majors, who he's playing Tick, Atticus. They go to recover his father, who's missing. And the thing about Lovecraft Country is that the great thing about Lovecraft Country, I should say, is that rather than the racism being just based in the South, as is commonly taught, it's based in the Northeast. And it really, the first two episodes really go over Lovecraft as a figure, as a racist figure, and takes historical, American racial historical backgrounding and makes it into horror stories.
I read your review before I watched the first episode, and you set me up with the significance of this story taking place in Chicago, where historically taught racism only occurs in the South. What's the significance, if you could dive deeper into that, Rob, about this taking place right here in Chicago?
Yeah, so Chicago has an incredibly racist history, unfortunately. It's probably the most segregated city in the U.S., which I think most of the U.S. doesn't know. And when we're talking about like most segregated, city in the U.S., obviously we're talking about redlining. If anyone has ever read Ta-Nehisi Coates' We Are 8 Years of Power, there's an essay that he has called The Case for Reparations. And a lot of that essay has interviews from local Chicagoans who talk about the practices of redlining, right? Keeping Black people out of, say, North Side neighborhoods. And if a Black person did happen to move into a North Side neighborhood, then often the repercussions would be violent. There were many race riots. There were many violent riots, and CPD as well. Multiple vicious acts they committed during the 50s and 60s.
All right, now if you guys want to check out the full interview with Robert, go ahead and head over to the Tribe's YouTube channel. Very interesting conversation we had. If you guys haven't watched Lovecraft Country either, check out HBO and see what that's all about. Wonderful series, great show. I've only seen one episode. There's 3 episodes now, so I got to do some catching up myself. But dope show, Lovecraft Country. We want to thank Robert Daniels for that interview. So, most of us are still indoors due to COVID. And while doing so has been difficult, what has made this time slightly better is seeing the shows and movies that I grew up on now streaming on platforms. Netflix did us all a solid and added some of our favorite throwback TV shows, such as Moesha and The Game. Here to talk to us about some of our favorite Black sitcoms is a stand-up comedian and TV critic, Ashley Ray. Ashley has made appearances at the Laugh Factory, the Chicago Women in Comedy Fest, Strip Joker, and many more. Ashley, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to We Will Chicago. How are you, Ashley?
Hey.
Hey, Ashley, what's going on?
I'm good. I'm really excited to be here. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for joining me in the virtual world. It's good to see another human and just to talk, I guess.
It does feel really good just to actually speak with someone. All I actually do now is watch TV. So I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Most definitely. It makes me feel productive to see other human beings. So we'll go right into it. I like to delve into the history of sitcoms, specifically Black sitcoms.
Yeah.
Ashley. And just like, what was the first Black sitcom you really remember watching? For most of us, it's like the Cosby Show. Like, I really first remember watching, Ashley. And like, how did Black sitcoms, if you know a little bit about the history, how did they come to be?
Yeah, I would say the first one that really clicked for me was The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I was born in 1990, so I was a little younger. Like, I watched The Cosby Show and I was a little like, this is kind of boring. And Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was like, oh my goodness, this is so exciting. It's so different. Like, it's fun, you know, it was kind of fresher to me. And it had like, you know, just more interesting girl characters. So that was the first show that really resonated with me and made me go, oh my gosh, there's something cool about Black TV. Like, there is a different sort of flavor. There's something different than what you kind of traditionally would see at the time, which I feel like was mostly white sitcoms. You know, that's like at the time you'd watch Nick at Night and it would be like Happy Days and you just kind of be like, what is this? And then all of a sudden Fresh Prince of Bel-Air would come on and you would be like, oh my gosh, TV can be way more interesting than I thought. And I guess speaking on the history of Black TV, that's something that I studied in school. It's one of my passions. You could probably tell I have my girlfriend posters up here. I have like a whole wall of like Black TV shows. But kind of the start of it is a show called Julia. And that starred Diane Carroll. It was this amazing show that was the first show to really focus on a single Black woman, which is kind of revolutionary at the time. It came out in the 60s. And so you kind of have this theme originally in sitcoms of Black female characters, but at the same time, it wasn't a show that really got into politics. It wasn't a show that got into racism. It was very light. It was very just kind of, oh, life is better if we kind of pretend race doesn't exist. And so for a long time, that's how things sort of coasted. Then you see this kind of like 70s, early 80s golden age of Black TV. And that's when you have like all of the hits you're probably like gonna know, like the Jeffersons, you know, Good Times. That's like the kind of the traditional Black TV era that people think of. And that was really a golden age of Black TV. That's a time when you see a lot of Black people on TV, but it did have this sort of dark side where people had to play these very stereotypical minority characters in order to get on TV. It was a time when, you know, we had Black people on TV, but they were not Black shows. They weren't Black characters written by Black people. It was very focused on stereotypes. So, you know, it's this golden age of Black TV, but it's a lot to like question there. But at the same time, you do have to really respect the sort of work and the storytelling that a lot of those actors did manage to pull off. And then there was this sort of backlash period. Something sort of happens where you see sitcoms don't really make as much money. It kind of dissipates a little bit. And then you see the Cosby Show in the 80s pop up. And that is sort of a response to this golden age of TV. This is the respectability politics of Black TV. And them coming back to say, we don't have to play these stereotypes. We can have a Black show that is created by a Black person. And this is what it can look like. But at the same time, it's also not really based in this reality because it is so focused on white audiences and sort of this perfect vision of Blackness. And then really, you know, you kind of have a response to that, which is like the UPN of the 90s. You get the WB, where you finally get maybe the most diverse portrayal of Black people on television. You know, you have everything from the Parkers to Moesha. You have like just finally diversity. And then in the early 2000s, people realized, well, it kind of costs money. You had a lot of these networks folding, being bought by other networks. These shows were expensive to produce season after season when talent got more expensive. Jamie Foxx cost money, come on. So eventually these shows kind of disappeared. Reality TV blew up. It was, you know, cheaper to make. And also it was kind of an out where a network could say, oh, we have a reality TV show with like a ton of Black women, so that's diversity, even though they didn't actually have any more scripted TV shows like Your Girlfriends or your, you know, The Game or anything like that. So then it kind of disappeared for a while. And most recently, what's kind of started this newest wave, I would say, is shows like Blackish. I think Blackish really should get a lot of credit of kind of being the founding moment of the most current wave, this like third wave of Black TV. But yeah, I think that's sort of, in a nutshell, the history of Black TV from the 60s to today. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and you touched on a lot of topics. Our editor-in-chief, Tiffany Walden, comments the Cosby Show for her was the first one she remembers watching. Fresh Prince, Martin, Good Times. One of our writers puts Martin for her especially. And you touched on the Cosby Show. We all kind of had a pride in the Cosby Show because it was called the Cosby Show, and we all felt, I don't know the specifics, but we all felt like Bill Cosby had the ownership of it, so we were all proud of it. And
I mean, it was aspirational. I mean, even within my family, like my aunt married a man and he was like, a doctor, and we were like, oh, you're just like the Cosbys. Like, oh, everything within the Black community that we were like, oh, the Cosby Show, I think. And it was one of those shows where we really held it close. And now that, we can't, it's very, I wouldn't want to show my kids those reruns, but at the same time, it's like, it was such a show for the moment and for the culture for what it was.
So Ashley, we go from 80s with the Cosby Show. Right before that, we've got kind of like this golden era, as you spoke about, with Good Times, Sanford.
Yeah, and Sanford and Son, the Jeffersons.
What's the one with Gary Coleman? I can't remember.
Different Strokes.
Different Strokes. You got Different Strokes in there.
Different Strokes in there.
It's hard to watch at times. But
yeah.
Can I touch on this? Here I come, here I come, here I go. Tonight's the night. Jamie Foxx was one of my favorites. And so when we talk about, there's a time in between the 90s.
I wanted to sing, but I can't sing, so I wasn't even going to try to hit. I was like, no, I'm not going to embarrass myself like that.
Get it started. That's one of my favorites all time, Jamie Foxx. That to me is like my favorite period of TV. And I think probably, for most kids my age, what we grew up with. I didn't grow up really with Good Times and, Sanford and Son. That was stuff that came on at Nick at Night. By the time I was watching it, it felt a little like, oh, this is so kind of dated. Like, oh, wow, these are Black people with afros and bell bottoms, Right. But then I had like Jamie Foxx. I loved, oh my goodness, why can't I think of the name? That era at the WB.
Yeah, we're singing and we're colored. That was
Wayans Brothers. That era at the WB was a really big one for me with the Wayans Brothers, and that was the time Wayans Brothers and Jamie Foxx, and I think they had the Steve Harvey Show at that time.
Exactly.
Really big Black comedy, unapologetically Black figures at that time.
Yeah, you also had the Wanda Sykes Show. This wasn't just interesting. In the Parkers, this wasn't just a time that was just male comedians, Black guys kind of dominating. I think, which you do see more in the 2000s, where it's like D.L. Hughley.
They dominated. They dominated at that time. Ashley, what can you say? Just speak to that surplus of Black content at that time, like the Kings of Comedy, Jamie Foxx, Wayans Brothers. We were rich and Black content right around that time.
Yeah, I think this is something that you see across all sort of forms of Black content at this time. And it's definitely not something that's necessarily new. I mean, you look at sort of eras of when Black music are popping and when it kind of flows and when it kind of dissipates. I talked to Justin Simien, the creator of Dear White People for Vulture, about this. But you see these sort of waves when, the sort of people who dominate culture say, now we care about diversity. Now is a time when we're going to focus money on Black television, and they sort of open the floodgates. And when the floodgates open, it's successful. And then there always kind of comes this time when we all sort of feel like, when are they going to close it again? It always comes down to either profit or, it inevitably television networks are driven by profit. We see, especially at that time, a lot of them, especially like the WB, UPN, they were bought by other networks. There were also a lot of difficulties when it came to Black TV shows and royalties. One of the reasons it's very difficult to maintain Black catalogs of TV shows is because a lot of them have very rare music occurrences or guest appearances. That was one of the reasons Living Single took so long to get back on the air, is because no one wanted to pay the money. People didn't think it was valuable or worth it. So there's also this additional burden that Black TV shows have, where they have to show their value and show their worth beyond just being, artistic endeavors. I mean, I don't think anyone has ever said, hey, is it worth it to have like Friends or Grounded for life on a streaming network? Nobody cares. Everyone's like, everybody loves Raymond, just put it on. But as a Black TV show, it's, oh, but is it valuable to have the Hughleys if we also have to like pay extra because, they had Ice Cube in an episode, blah, blah, blah. So they've had this burden of having to prove that value. And so now platforms like Netflix and Hulu see that value. Hulu started this a while ago when they finally did pay to get Living Single and A Different World. And then Netflix followed suit, as we've now recently seen with Sister Sister, The Parkers, Moesha. So I think we're going to see more of that.
And that's my thing, Ashley. I don't mean to cut you off, but how do you feel about these different platforms all of a sudden adding in these essential Black TV sitcoms that we hold so dear to our heart?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that person?
It's necessary. It's absolutely necessary because these shows are Black history. It's how we preserve it. It's how we save it. It's how we maintain Black history. The way that cultures become dominant and remembered are through TV. It's through the media that we create. And if we're not allowing Black shows to adapt to the newest technology, if we're leaving that stuff. When I studied this in college, there wasn't really streaming. It was impossible to find episodes of old Black TV shows like 227. I had to rely on VHS copies. I was getting things mailed to me. I had like a VCR. That's how I had to do it. And so knowing in the future, like, oh my goodness, like kids won't have to struggle in order to see Sister Sister or The Parkers. They'll have easy access to that. That does mean a lot. But at the same time, we have to ask ourselves, are these platforms appeasing Black people in a way that isn't necessarily supportive of our current creative endeavors? Is it enough for Netflix to be paying Black artists and Black, actors and residuals and royalties, but then current Black talent that's trying to work with them feels ignored or disrespected, or their shows are getting canceled? If you look at current shows on Netflix that are, led by Black people, like the Astronomy Club, which I loved, that got canceled. And it's like, okay, so they're not willing to invest in their current modern Black talent, but they are willing to like cut a few residual checks to make Black audiences happy to increase subscriptions. And one of those requires, more money and more investment. So you kind of have to long-term ask yourself, what really are these platforms looking at? What are they investing in? I think at Hulu, you see across TV and film that they really are investing in sort of these different voices. Justin Simien, his Bad Hair film will be coming out on Hulu in October. And he's spoken a lot about sort of that process and the sort of attention that they give Black creators. But at the same time, they don't have a ton of Black TV shows. They aren't doing that same work as Netflix on all grounds. So I don't think there really is like a perfect answer or perfect platform that's pulling it off right now. But I definitely think we all see the grounds that are being gained and what we still have to do.
Most definitely. And like you said, there's more content now than ever because of platforms like YouTube's, and the creatives are launching the content that they want to see. Just what are your thoughts on that, Ashley?
I mean, yeah, especially the other thing is there's so many Black people who are creating right now, especially in Chicago, where you have OTV, which I'm sure you're familiar with, OTV, which has produced series like Brown Girls in Chicago, Brewhouse. And, those shows are amazing web series that you can watch online. And they've like launched some pretty awesome careers for creatives in Chicago. And I think have really proven you can do your own thing. You can do it your way. You can do it in Chicago, and you can make really creative and different storytelling. You don't have to kind of do things by the book, and you can be successful. So, I think, you don't have to wait or sort of rely on that bigger network attention. I think, go to YouTube, go to where you're wanted. We kind of have that benefit now, and you can bring an audience with you. Look at Insecure. Look at that started on YouTube. Like we have that ability now. We can show the value in what we do if your work is good. And so I think that's I think where Black artists and Black creatives are way more empowered today. Where we're not going to have that sort of we don't rely on white gatekeepers for that ebb and flow anymore. We're able to sort of create our own channels and our own just like streams of revenue to say, hey, we don't need you anyway. So I think that's the most positive thing about sort of smaller outlets and web series.
No, that's always beautiful. That reminds me of Straight Out of Compton when Dr. Dre's telling Eazy-E, we didn't need Jerry because our shit's dope.
Yeah.
Like, it's dope. It's dope. It'll get the attention it'll get eventually if it's just dope content. So that's what I like about Black content now, where we don't need a Hollywood. And I'd like to see an industry start right here in Chicago. And it looks like we're well on our way. So Ashley, tell us about some of the shows that you've been critiquing, and where have you been publishing those critiques?
Yeah, most recently, over the summer, I did all of Search Party, which is an HBO Max show that I covered for Vulture. I May Destroy You, which is also on HBO, which I covered for the AV Club. Insecure, which ended a few months ago, but I also covered that for the AV Club. Every week, I'm covering 90 Day Fiancé the other way. You got to do a little highbrow, a little lowbrow. So love to cover 90 Day Fiancé. And then I have a few more pieces about I May Destroy You coming out. I got to interview Michaela Cole about some of the topics on the show, which was really exciting. I did that for Elle.
So talk to us about the podcast real quick, Ashley.
Yeah. So I'm starting a TV podcast called TV I Say with Ashley Ray, where I'm going to get to just really explore in depth the episodes of TV that I review. I'm going to get to talk to some really interesting people, actors, writers, behind the scenes people, just everyone who works in TV, just sort of the world of it and entertainment, and people that you really wouldn't think to talk to in television. I'm going to talk to a lot of my favorite comics about their favorite episodes of TV and their favorite tropes. I'm going to have like a whole episode that's dedicated to just bottle episodes, because that is my favorite TV trope. If you're not familiar, that's an episode of television where the entire plot happens within one room. All the characters are in that room and they never leave. So
episode of Martin where somebody stole a CD player.
Yes, that is a bottle episode of Martin. So I like to, that's one of my favorite tropes. I think there are some really exciting twists on the bottle episode. So I'm going to go into that. And I want to talk about some of my favorite new shows that are in Chicago. Chicago for me is so dear to my heart and my creative center. So I really want to talk about, Southside and The Chi. And Work in Progress, which I think is a great Chicago show that a lot of people aren't really talking about, but is really focused on this very queer version of Chicago that hasn't really gotten a lot of attention. But there's so many great things happening in television. We're all at home doing nothing. So let's talk about TV.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And you mentioned a couple of shows right here in Chicago that are based and shot right here in Chicago. Any other Chicago-based projects that should be on our radar? Put me on, Ashley. What can I watch besides like The Chi and the obvious ones? Any ones that I know about?
I'm gonna say The Chi. The latest season of The Chi, really good, very different. They really took the show in a different direction and made it so much more femme-centered. And I thought it was amazing. I'm gonna have to go with Work in Progress. I know I already said it, but I'm gonna say it again just because it is so different. Lily Wachowski, Abby McEnany, really just doing this very like North Side queer gay version of Chicago that's exciting. And then this is gonna count for me. Tuca and Birdie, they recently hired Samantha Irby, who is a Chicago writer. She's amazing. She's published books like Meaty, some other books I can't think of the names of, but she's so funny. I love all of her books, and I'm embarrassed that I don't even remember her names of her books. But she has like Meaty, We're Not Meeting in Real Life. Yeah. But she's hilarious, and she's writing on the newest season of Tuca and Birdie. So when that comes out, I feel like it's going to be very funny, very Chicago humor. She's just a great Chicago talent to watch. So yeah, I feel like those are the biggest exciting things. And then obviously Lovecraft Country, which is, nebulously sort of based in Chicago. It goes kind of between areas, but I think it's just a really wonderful historical look at the city, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, I agree. I was able to catch the first episode of Lovecraft Country. I still have to shell out for my HBO subscription.
The third episode was my favorite episode so far. That's when I was like, oh my gosh, this might be one of my new favorites.
Ashley, I heard you didn't really like Lovecraft Country like that, Ashley. I gotta be honest with you. But
who said that? Who lied? I loved Lovecraft Country. I don't know who's out here. I'm not reviewing it because I'm working on a book project on Black women in comedy, so I don't have time to focus on TV reviews and like focusing on the podcast. But I really, really wanted to get into that show because it is. There's just so many layers to it. I just like really, for me especially, I'm someone who loves sci-fi and who loves just things like the X-Files and Supernatural. And I think it pulls that off, where it's pulling off this sort of episodic mystery that you see every episode is just really scary and terrifying. But then it also has this really wonderful overarching story that just is so interesting and moving when you look at those main characters. and everyone on the show is attractive also. So yeah, Jonathan Majors. I think that says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I
Very
also
attractive.
in the Five Bloods. So
yeah, the Five Bloods was great. I did review that for the AV Club too. I'd recommend that one on Netflix, especially with everything going on in honor of Chadwick. That's a great one to watch. Especially watching it now, it's so much more moving in sort of retrospect to understand what he was going through in this role where he's just gonna sort of forever be young around this just group of veteran actors. So I couldn't get through it when I tried to rewatch it. I was bawling, I was crying. So if you can do it, you're stronger than me.
If you're just now joining the show, Ashley Roy joins us. Ashley, thank you so much for our time, guys. Ashley's going to stick around later for our panel discussion. Thank you so much, Ashley.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. So, guys, Chicago is a beautiful city with a rich and full history, and it has a vibrant arts and entertainment community. Today's special guests are building Chicago's TV film ecosystem. Joining me today, Kwame Amoaku, director of the Chicago Film Office. He's the first African-American to hold this position, and he is a 20-plus year film production veteran. Kwame was the location manager for the NBC series Chicago Fire and for the 2019 Netflix movie based on Chicago's hip-hop scene, Beats. Jenna Anast. Jenna is an activist, television talk show host, educator, and warrior for justice and radical self-love. Jenna is the co-producer, creator, director, and host of her talk show, Experience Craft Service, which airs on Open Television. And Jerod Haynes, award-winning actor, writer, and producer. Jerod has starred in Blueprint for the Orchard, and he has films on Netflix, such as Southside with You, Sense8, and the movie Benji. He's also appeared on Empire. In 2015, Jerod was honored with the Jeff Award for his performance in a lead role in the Chicago play Native Son. Welcome, everybody, and thank you guys for joining us today.
Hi.
Hi.
Awesome. Thank you guys for joining us so much. We'll go ahead and bring Ashley back to our discussion. And I just want to ask you guys, it's been difficult to make a name for yourself in Chicago's film and TV industry. I'm just assuming. And I want you guys to speak towards your experience just trying to break through. And how's Chicago for Black folks trying to develop a film and TV career for any aspiring film and TV makers? Anybody is free to join in.
I would say my path was a little bit more unconventional. I never looked at it trying to break through Chicago. I just wanted to create, and so happened that some of it happened in Chicago, but I kind of just go whatever the work is, and then I would say for anyone doing it, if you're in it for notoriety, this ain't for you. I think it's more of a long game, and to hopefully make content that you can't control the outcome of it, but hopefully you create with people that you enjoy creating with, and maybe shed light on some personal experiences, especially people of color, in the sense of, because we're not monolith. I think that tell your truth as opposed to what you think the truth should be, and I think you'll be straight. Eventually, somebody will listen because somebody has shared that experience, Black or white.
Now, Jerod, before we move on to the rest of the panel on that same question, you said unorthodox. Why? Can you go into detail?
Unconventional for me, in a sense, because I came in as an actor, but I did a lot of theater first, and then I did it because it just kind of fell upon me. I was depressed or some shit, and I Googled acting classes, and I end up working well for me, I guess you can say, and it's led me to a very fruitful journey. But I've learned more about myself in this journey than any other profession, because it forces you to take a look inward in order for it to be effective, I guess. So it's been highs and lows, but I'm grateful to be here.
Most definitely. So, Jenna, can you answer that question? How is Chicago for Black folks trying to develop a film and TV career? How was it for you?
My ice cream person is here. Do you hear that?
Oh my gosh, I can excuse you for a couple of minutes.
Look, I'm like, let me see who's on the block because
that's an opportunity I would understand.
just kidding. Happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I think for me, it started as a journey with theater. So I'm a theater kid. I graduated with a BFA in performing arts. I went to the University of Illinois at Chicago doing my thing. And then I had to leave Chicago, if I'm being very honest and transparent, not because the opportunities weren't here, but because this is where I'm from. This is my city. And so I knew for personal growth that I needed to kind of remove myself from everything that I knew, everyone that I loved, and be free. And so I went to California and did the whole thing, got an agent, was in tons of commercials, worked on a few movies. I worked as a casting director and I became SAG affiliated. Then I moved back to Chicago because, it's hard to stay, or it's hard for me to stay far away from Chicago. So I moved back to Chicago with that SAG affiliation, and that really helped kind of catapult my film career here in Chicago. Because when you have that SAG card, it's just like, you're in.
Kwame, brother, how about you, my man? Getting into the film TV industry, how was it for you breaking in? When did you decide this is what you wanted to do, and how'd you do it?
Well, I went to Southern Illinois University, studied cinematography. I left after 2 years to start raising a family, and I was blessed enough to meet some people there that managed to break into the local film production industry, and they gave me my first production assistant jobs. And from those, it's just kind of a hustle and a grind to parlay that into other jobs, and then kind of move through the ranks of film production, doing all kinds of work. So you have to have a lot of versatility when you're African American in the film industry in Chicago, because there's not a lot of opportunities. At least when I was coming up, there weren't as many as there are now. And you have to be able to be multifaceted and take on a lot of different jobs. So I learned a lot of different types of crew positions and kind of worked my way through the ranks, to do 25 years of pretty much everything you can possibly do on a film set. And it takes that hustle, that grind to make it in the film business on the production side. The deck is very heavily stacked against you, so it requires you to put in twice as much work to get to move through the different levels.
And Miss Ashley Ray, I know we just spoke. Was there anything you'd like to add to this question?
I feel like I would just reiterate a lot of what everyone else has said. I think for me, it was a lot of just versatility, being able to kind of turn things around quickly and to go where I was wanted in terms of my work. I started with spoken word. And then when I kind of realized I wanted to do stand-up more so than telling sad stories, I was able to kind of find a group of Black women stand-up comedians in Chicago who were able to sort of embrace me. And I found a lot of opportunity there, but at the same time, it did reach a point where I was like, I gotta kind of get out of Chicago to get to the next level, to continue to just like gain the skills. I think in order to survive in Chicago, you really have to be able to pivot quickly, to just be able to say, hey, I can do this or that. When it came to freelance writing, I saw an opportunity. People said, hey, we need a Black woman who can write about this. And so I just, jumped in. I took those opportunities. I sent those pitches out. So I think just always kind of making sure you have the skill set and the tools to be able to jump in on a project where you can be really helpful.
Okay. And whoever wants to jump in on this next question. So Chicago is you guys all touched on a common theme, which is having to somewhat leave Chicago, which is, and I'm a music guy, so I see that same thing, that same theme with musicians. A lot of musicians, rappers, singers, whatever, and they're trying to break into the industry, they just say it's very hard to do so in Chicago. Now, to the consumer, Chicago seems like sort of a hub for film and TV because of networks like NBC and all of these shows that they're now filming in the city. But is it fair to also say that you need to live elsewhere to make it in Chicago? Is there true opportunity here? We'll start off with Kwame.
So there's two different things. So there's film production work, which is working as a crew member and working more in an industrial kind of capacity. And there's content creation. So what Chicago has been lacking for a long time and what we're working on building here is the content creation infrastructure that we need to have in order to create our own content and develop our own intellectual property. I think that that's something that we are working on developing as a city. We realize that it's the future and that we can't necessarily be beholden to what the East and the West Coast want to bring here. We have to do our own thing. And I've been saying since I started this job, instead of trying to ask for a seat at the table, I think it's imperative for Chicago to build its own table and have its own creative infrastructure and its own creative content engine. And it starts with the content creators. It starts with the screenwriters. It starts with the people that are actually putting these things together in the independent production that is based here in Chicago. So we as a city want to work with independent producers and professional development to help everybody kind of get their game up and learn the above the line game a little bit better than we have been learning because we've been getting schooled here in Chicago for a long time. So and then trying to provide investment opportunities outside of the conventional investment streams. And just like Ashley was saying before, you don't need these entities to be successful. The distribution model has changed in such a way with these different platforms that you can have direct access to these platforms if the content is good. And that is the key. I mean, the content has to be good. And so I think where we're falling down in Chicago is that we're lacking the infrastructure, but then we're also needing to have a lot more professional development for the artists that are trying to work here so that they can get their game up and be able to, the work can stand on its own without any help from large corporations or big entities.
And Jerod, I see you shaking your head in agreement. You've had an opportunity to work on Chicago-based projects. How do you feel about the industry here in Chicago?
I think it's dope. It's growing. I think I've created a movie here, did really well, premiered in Deauville in France, and I think it's like, I think to reiterate what he said, I think that you just have to find a way to get together like the New Yorks, not necessarily LA because it's just a hub of business, but New York with the indie, and as far as the indie circuit, Chicago is I don't think we're any different. A friend of mine she had a film that just won South by Southwest from Chicago, so it's being done. I think that over time, as Kwame said, if we continue to learn the game, it'll happen. And as far as leaving, yeah, you don't have to leave. It's all a game, really. It's you may have to leave because that's where the work is. Usually, when things are cast, they're cast before they come to the city. That's what people don't realize. Because the bigger agencies, it's a conglomerate, so it's the bigger agencies. They usually cast before they come to the city. They may be based here, but usually the headliners are, or if the headliners aren't from the city, meaning born here, but usually if you're a headliner, your rep is West Coast. So with that being said, it's just a lot of different nuances. That it's not as simple as one may think, but I do believe that you should want to leave and grow and learn and then come back and feed the city. I think that's the goal, is that you learn. So if anyone tell you shouldn't leave, if you think it's a better opportunity there, it's only going to help you in the long run, so you can bring it back to the city. I think the issue is some of us want to grow so fast that it can hurt us. But with the advice with all these creatives online, like, I want to get all your information because I'm a sponge. I want to know things that I don't know. I just act, I produce, I do my little writing. Things been going well for me, but I always want to raise the game. And I want to, I think we see New York. We see those guys, because that's who really is like 10 toes down in it and creating. LA is just that's a whole different ball game. But yeah.
Facts. With New York, you see 50 Cent with Power. They don't trust anybody else with their stories. New York stories are by New York dudes in New York. They don't trust any other coast with their story.
We never been a filmmaking hub. We a hustler city. We a blue collar city, bro. Like,
facts.
Right, like running numbers and shit like that. That's not what we were. Like, you understand? So we just really go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I think there's an opportunity there to create a brand of Chicago filmmaking that speaks to that blue collar, like, not Hollywood, not pretentious, but not New York. It's a Chicago brand that I think we had the opportunity to develop as an independent film market here, that we should really, I think, as a city, work towards, in that community that needs to come cohesive to build that infrastructure, is what we need to work on as a city as well. Because like you say, you do your thing off on the side, you don't necessarily interact with other people that are doing it. And I think it's a synergy that can happen when different production and different creative entities kind of work together.
Now, Jenna and Ashley, both of you ladies mentioned that you moved. Jenna, you said it was more for kind of like a spiritual journey, but how do you feel about the entertainment scene here in Chicago? Did you feel like that move was necessary? Jenna, then Ashley, please.
Yeah, so my move to California from Chicago was definitely personal. Born and raised in Chicago. And for me, it's just really thinking about who you are when you are not around all of the folks who love you, the people that know you. I had grown a deep appreciation for the Chicago theater scene, and it's very clear that Chicago's the home of comedy. We are a city full of people and creatives who are constantly creating. And it really just depends on your idea of what success looks like, right? So there's a lot of Chicagoans before I moved to California that were doing their thing, having their own production companies, their own theater companies, working on films, and they were good. And so I definitely did not move to California thinking that I needed to. Actually, I didn't think I was going to be doing any kind of film or comedy at all moving to California. I thought I was going to be continuing to build my organization, Journeys with Jenna, solely as an education platform for youth. And so when I moved there, I was like, okay, this feels good. People really can feel the Chicago energy. They're like, oh, so you're from Chicago. That means that you're a hustler. Like you're someone that can make something out of nothing. And I say that not to like glorify all of the hardship that it is of being a Chicagoan, the most segregated city in the US, redlining our politicians. I won't go deep into it, but people can feel that. And so I was just instantly thrown into an agent's room, and they were like, oh, so you went to school for theater? Like, let's see if you would want to maybe be a part of this company. Then that built into, okay, how about, would you like to be a casting agent? Ever thought about that? Then I was on film learning how cameras work, learning how lighting worked, and just being on these sets for 3 years. And similar to what Kwame was saying, just learning everything, right? That Chicago energy of like, yeah, we want to know everything, or at least that's how I imagine the Chicagoan, just like vibrant, ready, full of life, ready to learn, ready to work. And so very quickly, I felt very confident of like, oh, I can do this. I can may have my own production company. I can go back to Chicago and work for Open Television. I work for Open Television. They're a platform right now in Chicago, and they're incredible and amazing. Check them out. And we did a Sundance and Open Television did an initiative the year that I started with them. And basically it was Sundance coming to Chicago, like same kind of energy. We know Chicago creatives are amazing. We know that y'all can do anything. And how do we do without having this conversation of we're trying to, move you over here to California or New York. And so for me, it's all about personal preference. I think traveling and living everywhere is just really important for my personal spiritual journey and really just thinking about what success means to you. So if we're talking about Chadwick, right? That person is like the epitome of being an actor with integrity, being someone in the film industry saying, these are my boundaries, this is what's important to me. And the roles that he got from having those boundaries are just a treasure. And so it's very nuanced. But I love Chicago. I think that we have the power to create anything that we want. And so I'm here for the development of that. So part of my work is to continue to build community, right? As head of community with Open Television, I'm building community with Stage 18. I want to build community with all of y'all on this panel and just continue to have these conversations of where there needs to be more infrastructure for professional development, content creation, all that, because we can do it here.
No doubt. And Ashley, you recently moved to LA from Chicago. Was there an opportunity here to do what you wanted to do on television? And I just want to...
I think, it's kind of weird because at the time when I moved, for me, it was that I really wanted to focus on getting more editing experience, more TV writer's room experience. And that was something you really had to come to LA to do. And also being a stand-up comedian, Chicago, like everyone has said, is a very segregated city. And when it comes to comedy, that's especially true, where you have the North Side, which is very dominated by like white comedy clubs and improv. And then there's the South Side. And then there's like an alt kind of queer comedy scene. And so for me, where I had sort of, done my thing in like the sort of alt comedy scene, the South Side scene, and it was like, okay, where else can I go? I gotta, start touring. I gotta travel to continue to kind of up my skills, to get in front of more audiences, because you start to realize, these North Side segregated bars have, said, we're just going to book white comedians. So you got to find where you're wanted. You got to go where you're going to be able to build skills instead of just, running in circles, kind of doing the same thing. So that I think is what really kind of pushed me to go to LA, is that I was at the time like, oh, I'll be able to, do writer's room packets and do, stand up and to get in front of different crowds. And then COVID hit. So stand-up comedy is not a thing, and you can be in a writer's room anywhere in the world. So for me, it's kind of cool because I actually have been thinking about, ways I can still tell Chicago stories. And I think now it's even more possible for us to get opportunities in Chicago where you can do a writer's room in Chicago, where you can work on a project in Chicago. And so I think for me, as someone who really focuses on TV, Kwame had talked about how, there is like a very sort of Chicago stamp when it comes to filmmaking. I want to see that for TV. I want to see TV shows that really share that sort of Chicago vision of storytelling, because I think we haven't really seen that beyond this sort of like Chicago PD Hollywood kind of hyper version of Chicago. But now we're in this place where we can actually tell stories that are a little more indie and maybe a little more intimate on television there, because TV doesn't look like how it traditionally did anymore. So
that's tough. That's tough. I always say I don't want to sound cynical. The reason I love this city is because it's so for it to be segregated, it's still a melting pot. What I mean by that is like born and raised Southside, we're over East really, and so the different, because we from the same tribe but from different tribes. Like people have different native tongues here in the city. Some a little bit more Southern, some a little bit more East Coast, some are West. Like it's very different experiences here. And I do agree with you. I think we haven't seen unapologetic experience when it comes to Chicago. because the truth of the matter is, I think I shouldn't be saying this. It's just a unique city, and I think that some of these stories that I would love to see on screen will take some care and some just care, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think right now a lot of sort of the TV version of Chicago focuses on sort of just the general allure of we're in Chicago, look at how quirky.
Yeah.
Even when you look at it on the side of like comedies, like Happy Endings Are Easy, which are based in Chicago. Chicago is kind of more of a punchline versus, something like an Insecure where Chicago is treated like the city. And that's sort of the running trope for TV shows set in New York, right? Like, oh, New York is part of the show. It's a character in the sitcom. But we haven't really had a Chicago show where they take the sort of time to build up Chicago as this character. And
Southside, though, I mean,
I was gonna say
that's the closest, bro.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Southside. I was gonna give Will Miles, who writes on that
100%.
I think is hilarious and amazing. I was gonna say Southside is really the first show where like you watch and you feel it. You get a sense of there's just an aura and a vibe to it. So I'm very happy that's going to be moving to HBO Max, that they're getting another season. Like, I think those are the shows we need to see sort of developed. And, sadly, Comedy Central, it has had this shift where they're focusing on more reality TV, cheaper shows to watch. As I kind of mentioned earlier, that I think is where Black creatives suffer. We're sort of the first on the chopping block. So when Comedy Central, they had this amazing show, they didn't really promote it. Now they're giving it to HBO Max. And it's one of those shows that you're crossing your fingers. It doesn't kind of fall through the gaps and get lost because
I think I think they call it a blessing. Actually.
That's what I'm really hoping. I'm hoping HBO Max invests in the show and says, we're going to build the show, we're going to promote it, that they didn't just buy the one season so they could air the season that was already made and just kind of run it out. I think that's what we're all kind of waiting to see, is that, that they see that these shows have promise. But I think also HBO Max is really dedicating itself to creating a really strong comedy platform. Like they have Search Party. They also picked up the other two from Comedy Central. So I think we're going to see and also they're just so good. I mean, you also have like Sherman Showcase, which is by that same team of people. Like those shows are so funny and are just picking up so much just like praise everywhere that it's like, how can you not like sort of understand that there's this really strong wave of Chicago comics and writers like Clark Jones, Will Miles. Clark Jones just got hired to write on, I think, a BET show called Sisters that's coming out. But he's another Chicago comic. But there is just a very strong voice that's there. And we're finally starting to see it kind of move to the front of the writer's room and to the front of these shows. And yeah, Southside is the example of that at its best, I think.
Joining me today, Ashley Ray, Kwame Amoaku, Jenna Anast, Jerod Haynes. Kwame, you're kind of like the OG in this group. You've been in the game a long time, brother. Why is Chicago a good place for filmmakers to create and shoot their projects, in your own words?
You're muted.
See, that shows that I'm the old guy in the room.
Start over, brother. It's okay. It's the OG. Kwame, please.
No, I think that the city is a character, as people alluded to. It has a lot of texture to it. It tells a lot of the story for you. I believe that as far as production infrastructure is concerned here, we have amazing crews in Chicago. I've worked all over the world, and I have to say Chicago crews are some of the best in the city. Even, from the higher level to independent crews, we really get the job done here. So you have location, you have crews, you have economy that can support the type of film infrastructure that you need to have as far as vendors and whatnot, and people that'll work with you. And even, the labor unions and the people that make the higher end films, they'll work with independent filmmakers here. They'll try to figure out a way to make your project work and be professional. So, and I just love this city. I think there's like I say, a brand of filmmaking here that's not like anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, no doubt. And, you know, we're in a unique time where there's no need to wait on the permission of gatekeepers to create the content that we all want to see. Jenna, you just launched a show on OTV. Can you talk briefly about your experience with OTV and what your inspiration was in creating craft services?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I launched a show. It's called Craft Service. It launched this past weekend, August 29th, so you could watch it. Thank you. It's a talk show experience. So the closest thing I can relate it to is random acts of flyness. So there's a lot of things happening. It's very Afro-futuristic, it has a lot of surreal elements. It's very playful, and also at times very jarring, depending on who you are. And so for me, it started with working as head of community and exhibition in 2019 with OTV, and having this part of my role was producing this event with Sundance and Open Television. It's a 2-day intensive that worked with Chicago creatives to basically talk about all things that is creating a web series, creating short films, and it being kind of a mentorship program. And so I needed to get some money, right? So I was talking to some folks, and one person that I have been friends with for some time, Hannibal Burris, Chicagoan, humanitarian. I was telling them about this program, and they were like, yeah, I want to invest. I want to, I want to invest in that. And I was like, great. And he was like, yeah, I'd love to be like part of it, but I'll be on tour. And I was like, okay. And he was like, so we can either get a hologram of me. So we can like turn on the hologram and my hologram be at this 2-day intensive. And I was like, or I could interview you. And he was like, okay, cool. You're going to interview me, but you got 5 days to do it because I'm leaving and I'm going to Japan. I think I'm going to Japan. Hi, Kamari. And so I have 5 days to come up with concepts, get my crew, do all that. And it was divine timing. I was ready. I was like, let's go. So the first episode shot, and Hannibal's my guest star. And so it's very playful, very funny. The whole concept is interviewing global change makers, Chicagoans or people related to Chicago. And on the show, we create recipes for success, recipes for nourishment. There's some spell casting in there. And so it's an experience. So go check it out. It's very neat. So I just launched the first season.
Awesome. Congratulations. Snaps for you, Jenna.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Dope. This next one's for Jerod. And Kwame, I actually want you to jump in on this one as well. As of now, and Ashley alluded to this, there's a lot of medical and police dramas that are popular and filmed here in the city. Would you guys say that there's diversity in the types of content that's produced here, and the types of roles that are available? Jerod, you're on the scene literally. Can you speak to this topic?
I don't know if I have the authority to say that. I really don't know. I come from where I come from. Nobody wants to be an actor, bro. So the fact that I'm doing it, like, I don't really like subscribing to shit like that, because then I got enough shit I'm dealing with. Like, I know I'm Black. Like, I know it's tough. So I try not to let that do shit like that. Like, this is dope to me. Kwame sitting here giving us game. Yeah. She just said she launched a show. This person is she reviewing shit. Like, I don't really subscribe to shit like that. So I'm the wrong dude to ask. So I'm all I can say is I got a best friend by the name of Leroyce Hawkins, who's one of the leads on PD. and I think they finna change it for him on that joint because of what's happening with the climate. I got a friend, Marlene up there on Chicago Med. I was on Med. As far as diversity, it's always gonna be lacking diversity because there's some new thing happening every day. And the truth be told, it's diverse within Blackness. So I can't really speak to that, bro. I don't have the capacity or the know-it-all to speak to something so specific because I don't have room for it in my brain. Sorry.
No doubt. I understand you're already worried about enough.
Yeah, I'm really just a hustler, bro. And the fact that I'm living and I'm 34 and I'm making a living doing acting, bro, like no job, but just acting. I'm diverse.
Yeah.
I'm looking at diversity, bro.
Facts. Snaps. OG Kwame, speak to us.
Now, I know that just working with these networks and these studios, we've been meeting with them because the mayor's office is really looking at television and production as part of recovery economics from this COVID stuff. So we've been reaching out at a very high level, both from the mayor's office and the governor's office, to production studios and networks trying to bring work here. And one of the conversations that we're constantly having with them is the diversity conversation. So it's definitely in the forefront of their mind going forward. We're looking at creating more of a pipeline in the workforce development here in the city to get more people from underserved areas involved in film production and in the industry. So I think that diversity is definitely a hot thing right now in the industry, and opportunities will exist in a much more. There'll be much more opportunity going forward than there has been in the past. One example I want to point out is that when I was the location manager on Chicago Fire, I was one of the only Black department heads on any of those NBC shows. But just recently, the person that was my coordinator was made a writer on the show. And it was just her raw talent that got her that opportunity. She managed to hustle that. So again, I think that like Jerod is alluding to, when opportunity meets preparation, there's a recipe for success. So there's going to be more production here and more opportunities, but people need to be in a position and ready to seize on those opportunities when they arise, because it's kind of like getting struck by lightning. It's very difficult. There's no roadmap. I couldn't tell you how I became an actor. I couldn't tell you how you couldn't follow the blueprint, because it just happened that I was in the right place at the right time. I was prepared and I was able to execute. And that's how this industry works. And so I think those opportunities are going to be more plentiful, but it's important that we as a people are in a position to take advantage of those opportunities. And that requires preparation and having the skill set in order to seize those opportunities. So if you're a writer, you have to be really writing. You can't be halfway writing. It's a job. So if you're a producer, director, you got to get out there and create that content. So that's, and then the industry will come hat in hand to you, and you won't have to worry about trying to bang on those doors.
Most definitely, OG Kwame basically telling us proper preparation. See, I done forgot to say the saying prevent performance.
Yeah. Stay ready. You don't have to get ready.
For performance. Stay ready. You don't have to
That's true.
Amen. Gems from a true OG Kwame. Okay, guys, we're getting ready to wrap it up. I ain't gonna keep y'all here too much longer. Like the Black Preacher, when he say that, it's usually another 20, 25.
Real quick, Ron. I just want to say to everybody on here, man, I'm really humbled to share this with y'all, because like I said, we got enough we're dealing with. So I just want to say, may he continue to guide everybody's footsteps, give y'all endurance, strength, wisdom, supernatural wisdom, and supernatural endurance. And just may everything just materialize in a way that you couldn't even understand. But may, the saying of, to whom much is given, much is required. But may everybody meet the requirements to whom much is given. So I pray for y'all well-beings, and hopefully let's create and let's do great things.
That's a gem. Jerod.
Yeah.
That's a gem. Jerod Haynes joins us. Guys, this is my last question for everybody. Jerod, please add on to what you just said, but tell us about any special projects you have in the pipeline. What should we know about what you got going on, brother?
Amazon Prime, Blueprint, Project Blue Book, and on HBO, Native Son. You can check them joints out. And then, yeah, man, some stuff coming. I can't really speak on, but Lord willing, they fall in line.
No doubt, no doubt. Ashley Ray, what you got going on? Remind the people.
Yeah, so TV I Say with Ashley Ray, my television podcast is coming out at the end of this month. You can join my newsletter for updates on it. Just follow me online at The Ashley Ray or www.theashleyray.com for updates. And then, yeah, some exciting stuff I also can't talk about, but just join that newsletter for updates.
Miss Jenna, tell them where they can get in tune with the craft service.
I'm going to let them know that you can watch Craft Service. You can watch it. You can go to journeyswithjenna.com and find it through there. You can go through Open Television and find me there. Also, I just got a grant with 3 Walls. This grant is helping me develop a project. The whole concept is dismantling the way that media weaponizes Black and brown people. So I got this grant. I'm gonna be doing this for 2 years. So I'm just out here really trying to do this. So thank you so much. You can find out all about that grant on my website, journeyswithjenna.com. And thank you all so much for being who you are. Ashley, real quick, I gotta just shout out. I love reading your TV articles. I don't have a Twitter. So you are like my Twitter for like every time I watch I May Destroy You. I'm like reading, and
I May Destroy You is my shit too. By the way,
you know what I'm saying. You gotta read Ashley's articles on what is it, AV, right?
Yeah, the AV Club. I do it for every episode. It's one of my favorite shows. It's just beautiful Black storytelling. It's so good.
Yeah,
it's so cold. Oh my God.
It's so good.
So thank you for your writings. I deeply appreciate
Thank you. Oh my God, everything you do is amazing. I'm fangirling. Like, you need to get on OTV. I think all of us have brought up Open Television. They are really doing it. Please go watch so many amazing shows by so many Chicago artists and writers. It's everything they put out is amazing.
No doubt, no doubt. Last but not least, OG Kwame Amoaku. Kwame, you got to be working on something. Is there something you can tell us? What's in the pipeline? Where can we find your works? Talk to us, OG.
We're just wrapping up Fargo right now with Chris Rock in the city. That's just wrapping production here.
Nice.
First production in the COVID environment. So that's really kind of our flagship. And then, of course, all the NBC shows, they'll start up again pretty soon. And then there's a chance that there might be a Batmobile rolling around the city. So keep an eye out for that.
Hold on. Rewind. We got the Chris Rock coming out.
Did you say Fargo?
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you telling me Batman's going back to the hood? Because it was in the hood at one point. The Batmobile went to Greeny. It's been in the hood before. Are you telling me it's making a return? The Batmobile is making a return to the ghetto?
I'm not going to say exactly where the Batmobile might pop up, but it's possible that it could be wheeling and dealing on these streets here. So we'll see.
You heard it here first. We Real Chicago, OG Kwame just laid the bombshell down. I want to thank my panel so much. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys for joining us here on We Real Chicago. Thank you guys. It's been awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Awesome. And now let's move on to the forecast. Southside singer, songwriter Johari Noel dropped a new single and video this week. The single Time was written and recorded in quarantine. You can listen to Time wherever you get your music. So guys, thank you so much. That's our show. Make sure to check out the scene to see what's popping this week in the city. I'm Rome J, the host of Real Chicago. Thank you guys again for joining us tonight. If you have any questions about the show or want to reach out to us, hit us up at connect@thetribe.com. You can find me on Twitter at the RomeJ_ and on Instagram at RomeJ_TV. Make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe to our YouTube page. Thank you guys so much once again. We'll catch y'all next Thursday. Stay real. Stay safe, Chicago.